Hello, now we're going to be going on to the 14th General Council of the City Council of Barcelona, led by the Mayor of Barcelona, President of the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona, and of the General Council of the Strategic Plan of the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona, Ada Colau. To begin with energy, we have a video paying homage to all the neighborhoods of the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona, most especially produced for this meeting by the well-known writer Martí Salas.
La rumba que coneixem no és de la Xina ni del Japó. La nostra rumba que tothom canta està marejada de tot el món. La nostra rumba que tothom canta està marejada de tot el món. La rumba neix al carrer, filla de Cuba i un gitanet. La rumba neix al carrer, filla de Cuba i un gitanet. I sa germana que és la vanera, viu un xalet entre mariners. I sa germana que és la vanera, viu un xalet entre mariners. De Can Anglada, Martorella, Barruí, Aragall, Mollet i Caldes, Marines, Papiol, Garraf, l'Espirall, Sitges, Tiana, Palafolls, Canet de Mar, Vacarisses, la Granada. La nena té ritme inquiet, penja el compas i va llogar els peus. La nena té ritme inquiet, penja el compas i va llogar els peus. I sa família de ritmes guapos viuen contents a l'estranger. I sa família de ritmes guapos viuen contents a l'estranger. El candombe és Uruguai, la milonga és Argentina, el bolero mexicà i la plena que és boricua, fabricant el guaguancó, que és el ritme de New York. Més jugador simpàtic, que és el ritme més mafiós. Canovella, Singerlin, Rocafort de Can Anglada, Martorella, Barrubí, Aragall, Mollet i Caldes, Marines, Papiol, Garraf, l'Espirall, Sitges, Tiana, Palafolls, Canet de Mar, Vacarisses, la Granada, Cerdanyola del Vallès, Cardedeu, Palau, Tordera, Collbató, Sant Just d'Esvern, Castellcir i Sa Calella, Montmeló, Torrelavits, Palafolls, Esparreguera, Castellà, Rius, Campins, Argentona i Martorella.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and hello everyone. It's such a pleasure to give you all a warm welcome to this room of the 100, this hall of the 100. We are very happy to have Núria Marín, President of the Provincial Authority of Barcelona, and also Mayor of Hospitalet, and also Aurora Cadap, President of Barcelona Global, and Jordi Martí, who is a representative of the Council, but also is here because of the Strategic Metropolitan Plan for Climate. And all of you, all the people connected today online in this event that, of course, we have to organize in a hybrid way, semi-direct, with mayors from different areas and financial, academic, social representatives of the metropolitan region of Barcelona. Truth be told, we couldn't start this event better. I'm super happy, and I want to thank the Metropolitan Group for this cultural initiative. Culture has to be one of the main axes, the backbones of the metropolitan city, of the metropolitan territory. And really, this metropolitan version of this rumba song that's been adapted, well, it practically made us dance in this Hall of the 100 at the City Council here. And the message of the song is really very true, and the will behind it. And that is that Barcelona, for a long time, is much more than its neighborhoods in the municipality. It's Barcelona of the neighborhoods, but it's not only of the city of Barcelona, it's of the whole metropolitan area. And that's, well, the happy spirit that is gathering us all here today. A region in which there are so many municipalities, each one with its own identity, with its own history. But at the same time, we all live and relate to each other. We have a shared reality. And obviously, we have shared challenges, especially in critical times like the ones we are living. So, with this spirit, we officially say hello to you in this another meeting of the metropolitan area of Barcelona. The name of the meeting is Barcelona Tomorrow, Challenges and Decisions for Barcelona 2030. Barcelona Tomorrow is a call for us all to work together. It's also a process that we have just started by identifying the main challenges that the metropolitan area of Barcelona has to face, the real city of 5 million inhabitants. And this should end in, well, achieving this 2030 metropolitan commitment. The situation we've been living since the month of March, well known by all of us, has taken us to this state of exception, of exceptionality that's proving how very vulnerable our style of life can be. These are exceptional times, not only because of COVID-19. Even before COVID-19, we were living a crisis, an environmental crisis, an economic crisis, generating increasing terrible inequalities, a number of structural crises. And when the vaccine comes, these inequalities will continue. So then these are exceptional times that we are living that demand from us attitudes, exceptional attitudes and action. Because of this, in the month of June, we started the process of Barcelona Tomorrow, and we invited the main cities of the metropolitan area of Barcelona. The goal was to open a new space for dialogue, of agreement and joint work between cities and towns that represent the very valuable diversity of our metropolitan area. So from the coastline of Maresma to the B30 industrial axis to the rural areas of the delta of the Llobregat, also the mountains of Montseny, from those very dense cities like Santa Coloma and Hospitalet that have a urban continuum with Barcelona, right down to Penedès, that sees this metropolitan growth from a certain distance. And all of us are aware of the strong influence we all have on each other. The space of the strategic plan, Metropolitan Plan of Barcelona, is work of 30 years with a long-term vision. And this enables us as well to experiment with new governance forms, to test agreements in territories without an institution, a governmental institution, which is the real city, and counting with the collaboration of the private sector, the world of academia, research, and also citizens' associations. During these months, and with the president of the Executive Commission, Jordi Martí, and the general coordinator of the association, Oriol Estela, we have carried out a number of contacts, conversations, and the necessary meetings in order to start aligning visions, standpoints, interests, and expectations. And technical work has been started to place the subjects that will have to be worked on jointly. This General Metropolitan Council will be submitting the first definition results on the challenges that the work that has been carried out by the Commissioner of Barcelona Tomorrow with the support of the technical team. We have so many joint challenges that we share, and also with the large global metropolis, what happens to us here is not only happening to us, but in my case, I'd like to highlight three challenges. They are evident, but nevertheless, they have to be defined and highlighted. First of all, fighting against climate change, this climate change emergency that is putting in risk the life of the planet. And us as metropolis have a huge responsibility and also a huge opportunity. The responsibility, we know, we are responsible for most of the emissions that right now are precipitating climate change, and this has to be inverted. However we can do it, it must, but we must see it as an opportunity as well to accelerate the change of our economies going towards green economy, sustainable mobility, reindustrialization of the 21st century. And here we could generate thousands of jobs as well. This challenge also has a lot to do with the second, which is growing in strength in the recent months, which is the economic recovery. We cannot go back to where we were in the past because we were in a crisis anyway before the pandemic. So then what we have to learn how to do is take advantage of this crisis and transform it into a real opportunity. It mustn't just be empty words. And third challenge, let me highlight what was mentioned at the beginning, fighting against inequality, one of the main threats that we have in our metropolis, in our cities, and in our territory. We don't want everything breaking. This economy that year after year is just accelerating and increasing the gap between the rich and the poor, but not only people unemployed, but increasingly more people that do work but never make it to the end of the month because of a terrible income. It's not a sustainable economy if we think of general interest and we think that the economy has to be at the service of the citizens and not the other way around. So this is an economy that has to be changed to do away with these inequalities that are such a threat for the life in our neighborhoods and such a threat for the harmony of our metropolitan region. So today we'll be explaining how during next year we want to develop a number of workshops on these and other challenges we want to work on. We want to see them as missions, missions that will actually define the new strategic plan for the metropolis of the 5 million, the Metropolitan Commitment 2030. I want to highlight the attitude with which we are doing all this. We know that throughout our shared history, very often the different governances, possibly without an evil intention, but they do lead to an excess centralism with the Barcelona city. And very often the metropolitan area feels that it's simply used like the back courtyard to outsource the evils of the city of Barcelona. And we know that in this metropolitan transformation has to change radically, and that the new metropolitan territory will be polycentric or it won't be. It will be based on cooperation or it won't exist. So the attitude that has to be the backbone of the metropolitan plan, I'm sure it's one of the most important subjects that we've got to work on, especially here in Barcelona. We have to be self-critical and we must have the vocation to change, to go towards this cooperative polycentric metropolis. And at the same time, we have to identify these large global challenges within the moment that we are living. And so then we want to make sure that we'll work on them, as I said, as missions. To talk about challenges as missions means that you have very clear, specific, accurate goals. Very ambitious, yes, but attainable. And they force us to weave alliances and to encompass everything in different forms and content. An exercise that will be useful as well to obtain maximum profit from the resources that have to come through the European funds, because yes, indeed, there's a huge discussion here, yes. And amongst us all, we know that it doesn't make sense that we make this become a competition to see what administration gets first to the central government and to see what company arrives first or has a contact with the government in Madrid to place a project. This is not the idea. These European funds will only be useful if we all go together, all administrations with private partners, European Union partners, all together to face these main transformational challenges that we face. This idea then of missions, and I'm coming to the end in my introduction, precisely has been adopted by the European Commission to establish quite a great part of its agenda. And it has been promoted by our special guest today. We are so, so happy that she accepted our invitation. We know that she is a very busy lady. She has a lot of work, and I'm referring to Professor Mariana Mazzucato, Professor of Economics, of Innovation and Public Value of the University College in London, where she founded and directs the Institute for Innovation and Public Usefulness. Well, she's an inspiration globally. And well, her suggestions and proposals indeed are being assumed and deployed in different environments in Europe and beyond Europe. And we are really very thankful. Grazie tantissimo, Professor Mariana Mazzucato. So now in Italian, we did speak a bit before this event. And once again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being with us. And well, because you are an inspiration that we need in these hard times. So, well, I will give you the first question. I'm sure that this is being translated into English, so not to worry. So we have a question about the city in this global world and how the need is for innovation. So this is, I mean, the challenges I mentioned, the climate emergency, the problem, and the fact that we must all cooperate. Well, then, do you think that cities can still be a strategic place to face these challenges that we have globally? Thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Grazie a voi. Adesso non sono più sicura che lingua parliamo. Si quieren, podemos hablar español, italiano o inglés. Mi español está muy italianizado, entonces tal vez es mejor en inglés. It's such an honor to be speaking with you today. I always use Barcelona as the example that many of us have to follow, not only at the city level, but really at the global level. I think what you have done there, for example, around how do we govern digital platforms in such a way that is proactive, that is about pre-distribution, that is not just about worrying about privacy and taxation of big tech, but it's actually about innovating organizationally within the public administration, bringing in hackers into the city team to be able to create a direct relationship with what is theoretically an opportunity for us all globally, digitalization, AI, etc., big data, but actually often is not, because we know what actually then happens on the ground is that what could be good for public value ends up actually just being siphoned out for private profit. What you have done in the city of Barcelona, and what I always tell people about your story, about bringing hackers into the team in order to actually govern the way that the city manages, convenes the data in such a way that it improves public transport and public housing decisions. I just think it's incredibly innovative. So for me, it's an honor to be speaking with you, and I want to learn very much from you, not just preach. Anyway, so coming to the point of missions, are all about starting with the Sustainable Development Goals, because we shouldn't start from scratch. These are goals 17 that we agreed on globally, every country, of course, Spain as well. There's 169 targets beneath them. But the problem is that we go from being super high level, zero hunger, zero poverty, clean up the oceans, etc., to very, very concrete in terms of the targets. And what missions do is they create this intermediary place where there's just a very clear goal, getting the plastic out of the ocean or having a carbon neutral city, which you can actually say yes or no, did we achieve it? And the main thing is to have as many different sectors involved. So we go away from this idea that we make a list of technologies, a list of sectors, a list of types of companies like SMEs, to say, no, this goal needs everyone to get involved. And so the really difficult issue is, what does it mean for the policymaker to transform the levers you have from procurement policy, grants, loans, price schemes, to be able to crowd in as much excitement, interaction, collaboration between different types of public, private, third sector actors to solve that problem. Yeah. And what cities present to us, I think, is locations that just have so many concrete problems, like going from point A to point B, or the housing question, the transport, the future mobility question, and to change the way they are framed away from a sectoral view like housing to a much grander view, like how do we live together? How do we, work to, like what is a public square? Just because it's free to walk in, it doesn't mean it's public, right? So social housing, what does the social and public aspect of public housing mean? So it has to be citizen-centered. And what cities have, and I really think the city of Barcelona has led on this globally, so I congratulate you, is so many concrete problems, but which can be reframed in a really inspirational way around human rights, right? The right to be, having a house over, a roof over your head, or to be able to go to work and go to school. These are all human rights, but they require a structure, a social infrastructure, a physical infrastructure. And you have citizens who are there at your doorstep. The proximity to your citizens is very close. So the collaboration that one needs with all the missions to get real citizen engagement, it's easier in theory in a city. But it's not easy if you don't have leadership. And so this is where I think it's really important what you've done in Barcelona, especially with your mayor, who I love. Adam, I'm so happy that today we were able to speak. Your real experience, your granular experience around questions like housing and social housing, and really the welfare state, reinventing the welfare state, talking about the welfare state is so important because by definition, it's about the citizen well-being.
Mrs. Mazzucato, we're going to be with you right now. Just 1 second. Gràcies, alcaldessa, per adreçar-li aquesta primera...
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mayor, for having posed this first question to Professor Mazzucato. We'll continue in English, but let us remind you all that you can follow this with the simultaneous translation system.
Waiting. It is such a pleasure to have you here. Let me begin with that I want to point out that your huge work, as well as that of the Institution for Innovation and Public Purpose that you founded and you also direct, which has made you earn so many awards and recognitions, puts a great deal of focus on the entrepreneurial role of the state and the way that it is an essential promoter of innovation. But cities are today considered to be the most important spaces of innovation from a more bottom-up perspective. So at what point do you think the entrepreneurial state and the innovative metropolis coincide? Meaning, at what point do you think they meet?
Well, they meet from the very beginning because the entrepreneurial state, by definition, is not, the big state, the top-down state, the dictator state. It's a decentralized network of all sorts of different public institutions, which together with private institutions and increasingly third sector institutions are co-creating and co-shaping markets. The problem is that if we don't have a framing of the state as doing anything more than picking up the pieces after problems arise, it's really hard to activate the entrepreneurial state. And so, whether we're looking nationally, regionally, or at the city level, the real question is, what is the public sector for? And the problem is that we've had such a narrow, boring framing for the public sector is just fixing market failures, that whether we're talking about the city level or the national level, they're equally have been problematic globally. And this is why I really, applaud, as I was just saying. I'm not sure if people heard what I just said. I'm not clear on the, sorry, on the format. But what I was just saying before was that I think what the city of Barcelona has done, and also other cities globally, which I'm seeing in some ways leading the way with the Sustainable Development Goals, which are supposed to be national and global, cities have such concrete problems that they have to solve, from future of mobility to social housing, to carbon neutrality of the city, that really getting citizen participation to the table ex ante, not just ex post reacting to a mission, say, that has been set by somebody, is something that cities can do much easier. So the entrepreneurial state idea is that everything that's in our iPhone that makes it smart and not stupid was invested in by a state agency. The internet, GPS, touchscreen display, and Siri. But what's even more interesting is that those investments that the state made in the internet was solving a problem. And the problem was they needed the satellites to communicate, and the internet was the solution. And so the question is, what are the problems today underneath the Sustainable Development Goals? And I will not get tired of repeating, let's start there, which needs solving. And because cities are concrete places, people live close to each other. There's the issue of proximity, but also they represent global problems like pollution, and most pollution occurs in cities. I just think they're a wonderful place to experiment with a different role of the state, not just fixing markets, but proactively setting the problems that we need to solve and convening as many different actors as possible to co-design the way that we frame the problem and that then we tackle it. But without the leadership of the public sector, we know from the past, whether it's on the ICT revolution or the green revolution, the business sector does not follow. You need leadership. And unfortunately, if you don't have the correct framing of the public sector, then the public-private partnerships the collaborations between public and private sector, which of course are needed, end up being framed badly, and even worse, parasitically. So we socialize risks but privatize rewards. Anyway, I think all these issues, I should stop now, otherwise it becomes too much of a lecture. I think cities are the ground where we need to experiment with the new role of the state and a new type of partnership between public and private sector.
And do you think that this approach, it could be the role for Barcelona and its
And do you think that in this
region? So you think this can apply to this metropolitan regional area?
Absolutely. And I think it's already applying. I have been very inspired by the work of your mayor, Ada Colau, and her team, and how they have thought very concretely around the question of big data and the possibilities of reorganizing the city in such a way that it can proactively manage the way that data is created and used in order to improve the questions around public transport and social housing. And I think that the fact actually that the mayor has such a strong history and experience on the streets, talking to people, makes Barcelona such an interesting place to experiment with the idea of a citizen-led designing of problems around, again, let's just focus on the mobility question and what it means for technological change, organizational change, social innovation and social infrastructure. And of course, Barcelona, like any city, is important to use it as a testing ground. But the fact that you have such a strong legacy of a progressive agenda, which really puts people at the center, the citizen at the center of the policy, I think makes you an even more interesting place. But in the United States of America, for example, where there's been so many problems at the national, federal level, the cities are leading. And the states, the individual 50 states, like the state of California is leading on climate. The city of New York has been leading on both climate, but also thinking through, say, public wealth funds. And I think cities are increasingly places of experimenting, new institutions, new structures, but also providing leadership that sometimes is missing at the national level.
So now everyone is talking about the European funding, like Next Generation EU, and what is the relationship of this mission-oriented approach with the policies of the European Union, and what do you think is the role that it will play in its financing programs?
So, first of all, we should all be very happy that for the first time in a long time in Europe, we have conditionality for recovery funds that are no longer about austerity, as they were after the financial crisis, but about investment. You will remember that after 2008, when the European Union, like in other parts of the world, had to help certain locations that were having strong problems, like in Europe, it was Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. The conditions attached to those recovery funds back then were that countries had to promise to spend less, right? We had these bogus voodoo deficit targets, which meant nothing. So you had countries, including in Spain, which cut publicly funded research and development, I remember this, by I think it was close to 40% in order to reduce their deficits, which makes no sense because all those are investments which in the long run, foster growth. So the debt to GDP ratio actually falls over time when you have in the short run an increase in the deficit if you are investing in all the areas that are drivers of long-term growth. So this time around, luckily, with the COVID recovery schemes, EU Next Gen, the conditions are about investing around two specific areas, mainly digitalization and climate. And what we need, though, is that this falls on the capacity of the public administration across the member states to, first of all, come up with a plan around those two areas, but also for the public administration to be able to actually then manage, without having to resort to consulting companies, these transitions that are required, to reduce the digital divide, to have carbon neutrality, not just in the cities, but in how we deliver public services. Right? So school meals or, public transport, et cetera, these are vehicles through which we can deliver a carbon neutral agenda. But to do that, you again need leadership, and you need it at the city level, at the regional level, and the national level. I think the biggest blockage we currently have in Europe is we have different funds. We have directly managed funds, for example, the Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, Connecting Europe facility. And we have the shared management funds, which are spent by member states, which include now the Recovery and Resilience Facility, but also the structural funds and the agricultural funds. And I think that the missions concept, which I was very happy, to be able to write for Europe, and it became a sort of law or a legal instrument, I think it needs to be put at the top of the cabinet in Europe, in von der Leyen's cabinet, in order to help create cohesion and alignment between these different funds. Otherwise, it's a wasted opportunity. We have them all going in different directions. They're all dispersed, and they don't create structural change, transformative change for Europe. And China, interestingly, because they have such an urgent problem with pollution, they have actually aligned their system, and they're spending $1.7 trillion worth in different types of innovations, technological, social, et cetera, that foster a green transition. And some countries in Europe are helping them do that. Denmark is the #1 provider of high-tech digital green services for China's green transition. And what we need in Europe is to become a hub of innovation and bringing the public space, the square, to the center of that, where people engage on these issues throughout Europe, but especially learn from each other between European countries to foster real transition. But we need the European recovery to be at the center of that. So it needs more alignment between the different strategies.
We know you're a busy professor, so we don't want to take more time. Just, we don't want to forget about women. I want to say you're part of a selected group of women economists who are making their way into discipline, which, like many, are so masculine. So will we or you be able to finally manage to open a gap in what we could say it's a prevailing monolithic economic thinking?
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, the problem in economics is not just due to the lack of women. It's also due to the very wrong assumptions that we make about how the economy works. Markets are outcomes. Markets are outcomes of how we govern them, how we govern the public sector, the private sector, and their interrelationships. And we need to create different decisions within all these organizations, and especially different relationships. And I think what women can bring to the table is they often, for history, for a long time have often been at the center of care, of caring for each other, caring for the family, caring for the elderly, caring for the neighbors, caring for the children. And I think if we can transform Europe to be a leader in terms of innovation-led, inclusive, and sustainable growth, but use the COVID moment to put care at the center of how we bring all these different areas together, how we care for the planet, how we care for each other on the streets, how we bring care at the center of the health system. So the essential workers, the frontline workers, are not only clapped, but cared for in terms of properly paid and good working conditions.
I don't know if we can keep in. I don't know if we can keep on with.
They have been advocating for this.
Okay, so just let me say that it's been a pleasure to have you here, like being able to be in a lecture with you. So thank you very much for being with us, Mrs. Mazzucato.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Continuem amb aquest acte. Barcelona.
We continue now. Barcelona tomorrow, we were talking about it with Mariana Mazzucato, is a process of reflection and collective action and thought that should lead us to a new strategic plan for the metropolis of the 5 million. It's a metropolitan commitment for 2030. So then it's the process of definition of a shared strategy shared by the metropolitan area of Barcelona facing the main urban challenges of the 21st century. For example, social cohesion, climate emergency, the economic model, culture, innovation, education, but also the foreign projection and the governance model. To know how this process is making headway and how it will continue during 2021, we shall give the floor to the Vice President of Strategic Planning of the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona, President of the Executive Commission of the PEMB, Jordi Martí. Thank you. dear mayors and representatives of the institutions, of the social institutions, of the corporations and companies, and to the General Council of Strategy in Barcelona. It's a pleasure to have contributed to started this Barcelona Tomorrow plan, a commitment of the metropolitan area with the view on 2030. Cities nowadays are living difficult times. They are at a crossroads with three main challenges. One of them is climate change, threatening the survival of the planet. We have social emergency, increasing inequality and ensuing in poverty, and then also an economic emergency with a crisis in which, well, we are not doing well at all and we can't see the end. Cities play an essential role, partially because the consequences of the three crises are seen very cruelly in cities, but at the same time, because it's the main metropolis as well, the large metropolis, the ones that have the energy and potential to meet these challenges. So to think of Barcelona tomorrow, we have to start with what we had, the metropolitan area, the Barcelona of the 5 million inhabitants. The quality of air doesn't respect municipal borders. Territorial segregation has a metropolitan dimension, and an economic model that's more balanced can only be defined on the basis of the potential of the Penedès, the vitality of cities of the Llobregat and their economic platforms, the urban continuum of the Barcelona municipality, the quality of life of the Maresme, or the industrial engine of the Valleses. A city we should never understand as a centralized structure with crowns, as we used to call them, but rather a city of cities with powerful centralisms scattered throughout the territory. So in times of uncertainty like now, in which we still haven't left one of the worst global pandemics that we remember, it would seem that trying to clarify the future is madness. But challenges are of such a magnitude that we have to have this shared vision, and we have to have agreements mid-long term to face the challenges. Without huge changes, we're not going to be successful. Time is of the essence. And I'm sure that no either public or private power on its own will be able to give a global answer to these times of emergency. In this context, as we just heard, the methodology of Mariana Mazzucato, and we publicly want to thank her for her participation today and her will to contribute in this process. Well, we thought really that her mission idea is what best contributes for this Barcelona future plan, and it coincides with the strategic plan, the metropolitan plan. She says it doesn't mean to stop deficits or correct certain dynamics of the market, not at all. What we have to do is structurally change the model of society that we want and be daring. We have to go to define missions that are truly transformative in all disciplines and areas. Let's see it. Barcelona has to be neutral in carbon. If we want to get that in 10 years, we will have to structure many projects, but most especially we will have to align different sectors and actors, public investment, and then involvement of, for example, construction to refurbish vehicles, then electricity, electric vehicles, and then the development of everything so that we have research everywhere in the region. So the commitment is a shared commitment of many agents working in the same direction. Only this way will we be successful in these transformation goals that we have. So we start with these two elements, the Barcelona of the real Barcelona of the 5 million and the innovation methodology of Mariana Mazzucato. First, because of course it's from the metropolitan area where we can actually meet these huge contemporary challenges and structure a plan on the basis of the visions and missions, because this will make it possible to deploy at the levels we want. A real metropolitan commitment has to be a commitment compact amongst equals to meet these enormous challenges demanding working together. Barcelona, as has been done other times in the past, has the opportunity now to build its future and not let itself be led by the momentum of an emergency world. For all this, we define the conceptual structure on the basis of which we have the 6 metropolis. It's structured in 6 main pillars, and each pillar has to face the challenges of the immediate future. Let me give you them very briefly. The resilient metropolis focuses on responding to climate emergency, and here we see the challenges of mobility and structuring the city of 15 minutes in all the different urban fabrics of the region. The prosperous metropolis wants to have an economic model that goes towards good jobs and employment and territorial balance of the economic activity through a leveraging digitalizing the economy with innovation, research, green economy, creative industries, and with the transformation of our tourism model. Then the cohesive metropolis highlights the right to a home, and also there has to be a territorial balance, integration, and one has to know how to meet the new phenomena such as the elderly population or migration flows. The intelligent, smart metropolis has as a goal development and research in order to face these same challenges. And this also highlights the importance of culture. There can be no city project without a cultural project. So as to generate a critical society and also technological humanism to give an ethical citizenship response to digital development and platform economy. The open metropolis reaffirms the role of Barcelona as capital of Catalonia and from this position to be the capital and leader in global governance through the numerous networks of citizens. And finally, the last and maybe the most complex of all, the multi-level metropolis, opening thinking as to what should be metropolitan governance. We will ask ourselves and think, how should this city of this 5 million be governed, this metropolitan area of Barcelona, how to govern it? In the website, you have this foundational document. It's been elaborated by the team of the Metropolitan Plan. To them, the team of the strategic plan with Uriol Estela and the 13 experts who have been so helpful and have participated in this first document, my public thanks for their efforts. I have to say that there have been very intense and dense discussion sessions that anticipate a great year 2021, because we'll have all the social and economic and institutional and cultural agents with us working together in this lovely adventure. To give you, well, the schedule now. To the end of this year, we've been working on previous work to specify the challenges that Barcelona Tomorrow as a Plan wants to meet, and I was giving you the brief summary. During 2021, that's the time we defined for the missions. We will call for a series of public discussions to talk and reach consensus. In fact, there will be two types of discussion sessions, those dealing with the six areas I mentioned, common for the whole metropolitan area, and then other discussions that will be focusing on specific territorial subjects, Besòs, Llobregat, B30, Vallès Industrial Area, about those aspects that we want to debate and discuss on because they have different realities. Here, my special thanks to the Barcelona Provincial Authority, the Diputació. We had the President Núria Marín here with us. They have really been good and positive, and they want to cooperate with us in the development of all this. Then the first 6 months of 2022 will be for the process that will mean agreeing on the Barcelona Tomorrow document with the defined goals, visions, and projects to be deployed till the end. During these six first months of 2022, the role of institutions and economic and social agents will be crucial, and most especially mayors, the more than 160 mayors that are the leaders of the different municipalities in the metropolitan area, and they are the basis, the kernel for Barcelona to face all these initiatives. The last stage will take place once the plan has been approved and agreed on, and that will mean deployment of the projects. And then, well, once again, the Strategic Metropolitan Barcelona Plan Commission will have to monitor the way all this develops. Finally, we thought it was important to make sure that all this thinking opened the door to something that Mariana Mazzucato was mentioning, this resiliency and change in the European Union. If we calculate easily on the basis of the population of the 5 million people in the metropolitan area, and the one of the 140,000 million that will come, we will get the 15,000 million euro for the metropolitan area of Barcelona. It's a huge amount for resources. It's coming to us from the European Union, and it has to make us draw, define, decide projects that, yes, are leverages and engines for social transformation, where the active participation of citizenship will be incredible. We started with a provisional list of projects. We've started talking with the mayors. We will have to talk and discuss. We have a working group of all the cities in this Barcelona Tomorrow plan, so that in the coming months we decide on what the proposal will be for the Barcelona metropolitan area. Let me just give you some examples. Obviously, it's not an exhaustive list. As to climate emergency, it's the time to go to neighboring municipalities and sustainable mobility. I'm sure we'll find consensus. The good communication of a number of hotspots in the Catalan Barcelona metropolitan area, then work more on the tram and uniting towns, ending a new metro line that has been worked on. So making infrastructures for mobility better so that we go to sustainable mobility. And that means as well working on the energy of all the old buildings that we have in the metropolitan region. As to the readdressing of the economic model, now is the time to foster the recovery of the automotive sector and also work more on research in the metropolitan region. Very possibly, research and innovation will be the most decentralized activities regionally. Obviously, all projects that can consolidate this ecosystem devoted to digital technologies has to be further developed. Then, as to social cohesion, clearly we have the need of exponential growth in protected housing in a metropolitan territory. The problem of housing can only be tackled and solved from the larger vision and dimension. According to experts, as a region, more than 100,000 protected house dwellings have to be put to the service of citizens. And then we have other singular metropolitan initiatives that are useful for sustainability, cohesion, and economic reorientation, such as the huge transformation project designed by the Bezos Turdera Consortium. And obviously, this will also give centrality to the three Santa Adria chimneys, because the idea is for them to become an international hub for sustainable development and peace, or the European Center for Excellence, too. We have so much to do in front of us. We have a great opportunity, and we have the experts and the necessary talent. So Barcelona Tomorrow starts working now with all the institutions committed to the future of the Barcelona of the 5 million, to define a mid and long-term strategy and to take advantage of the opportunity that Europe is offering us. That's all. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good work to all. Thank you very much, Jordi Martí Grau. Yes, commitment, that's the word, commitment, the word of the process of Barcelona Tomorrow. And to reflect on it, we have a video for you all, including the standpoint of a number of representatives of the territories and different institutions that are involved in the process. We asked them all, please, to be very short, but to say what they think Barcelona Tomorrow must be like. What will Barcelona be, Metropolitan Barcelona, in 2030? Well, I would like a Barcelona and its metropolitan area looking and understanding neighboring territories and to be connected and balanced out with the counties outside. Barcelona and the metropolitan center are known internationally because of the quality of science and technology. So what we have to do now is to consolidate this research and development, and all citizens see it as the engine of Barcelona 2030. We hope that Barcelona and its metropolitan area in this near future will be a space for creation of quality employment, a space fighting against the gap in wages and income that wants fair economy, leaving no worker behind. Barcelona is a plural cosmopolitan metropolitan area. I think in 2030, the idea is that the towns, villages, and cities of the metropolitan area transfer these values to each municipality so that cultural diversity is the wealth of this future 2030 society. Barcelona in recent years has become a reference in innovation in Europe, and this has been possible thanks to a number of initiatives that have to do with knowledge and information technology. Now we have to give value to all this. We have to innovate, and it has to be done with a public investment and public leadership, but also from the vision of a metropolitan Barcelona that integrates through the metropolitan area other territories, like where we are right now in the Techno Campus. Barcelona tomorrow has to be the result of many summing up of territories that are part of this huge metropolitan territory. We have an enormous opportunity of working together in a coordinated fashion to promote solid and sustainable economic progress, to reduce social inequalities and generate cohesive territories to face our climate emergency for a better tomorrow. Barcelona with a metropolitan area that's against racism, where there is real access to becoming a resident without a fixed domicile from the moment of arrival, where we can continue to work in networks without being sold as bodies of migrants. Barcelona 2030 in the metropolitan area has to be more sustainable and look around, take more into account those of us who are producers nearby, and to be pedagogical and work on it in schools to get people to learn about nature, and so that people are fully aware of the fact that you should buy close to your home. That's the best way. Proximity, that's good for the territory and good for the people. Then industrial polygons and parks and technologies. Okay, let's preserve that, but let's not build more industry. Barcelona and the metropolitan area, I imagine, for 2030 has to be, well, like a place that is fair, equal, and inclusive, where all vulnerable people have the same rights as anybody else, as every citizen, where the protected housing is real and affordable for all, and to make sure that the city and its metropolitan surroundings is comfortable and accessible for everyone. From Granollers, well, 2030, yes, we want to promote markets in an active metropolitan area. It's active industrially, but it has to be the backbone of a whole balanced and respectful country. Barcelona, the metropolitan area, must become, in coming years and with the 2030 goal, a space of exchange, a space so that we open the door to ideas, goods, products, but also for foreign trade. This area has huge opportunities to become an enormous logistic hub, an enormous hub of production, internationally speaking. Barcelona tomorrow has to be an enormous metropolis to live in, to live. I mean, not to, not to let the neighborhood you come from to determine your health or the quality of your school. It has to be neighbors everywhere, neighborhoods where you find everything, where it's easy to work, walk, and be poorly or go to school, but especially where you can breathe. Barcelona did this quantum leap in 1992. Now is the time, and we have the chance for a second quantum leap forward based on science, technology, culture, and digitalization. Now's the time to do it with ambition. Let's go, Barcelona. Yeah, I believe in 2030, Barcelona and its metropolitan area will be a place where people will be fully aware of the environment, and people living there know that all the actions have a consequence on our planet.
Doncs eren les visions.
Okay, these were the visions of citizens and institutions of how this Barcelona tomorrow must be. It's the time now to give the second Santa Cana grant given to research projects that have been related to metropolitan policies. The winner of the second edition of this grant will be given by Oriol Estela Barnet, the general coordinator of the institution that has the jury of this, and it will be given by the president of this institution, Ada Colau. Thank you very much. Thank you. The meeting of the General Council is a very important date for us, of course, because of its institutional character and because of what it means of opening up to all institutions and citizens. And for this reason, as we did in 2018, we think it's the best moment to give this Santa Cana grant devoted to Francesc Santa Cana Martorell, who was for more than 25 years the General Coordinator of the Metropolitan Strategic Plan of Barcelona. Without his vision of the future, his ability to work and create synergies, well, we wouldn't have what we have now. We wouldn't be here where we are. We wouldn't be here as an organization and possibly as a metropolis. So it's a pleasure for me, in representation of the members of the jury, that in other circumstances would be physically here, but I want to say hello especially to them and thank them, Carme Miralles, Montserrat Pareja, Martí Parellada, and Joan Carpreciós. Well, we award this to the PH student of the Autonomous University of Barcelona, Maria José Larrota, the second edition of the Santa Cana Grant, with 7,000 euro for research and analysis of the green metropolitan infrastructure of Barcelona, addressed to the development of a work methodology that contributes to analyze different landscapes, scenarios, and deployment of green infrastructures, particularly productive agrarian terrain in metropolitan Barcelona. So now we have the Mayor of Barcelona who will give the award because she is the president as well of the institution. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you. Well, congratulations to the winner. To think of the future Metropolitan Barcelona is not easy at all. It can't be done by only one single institution, as has been said already. And in fact, this Barcelona Tomorrow process is thought and fed with other processes begun by other institutions. This is the case, amongst others, of Barcelona 2050, urgent challenges for sustainable future. This has Barcelona Global behind it, an organization based on the theme. That's why we invited the president, Aurora Catá, to speak to us for a while. Aurora, you have the floor. Good morning or good afternoon now. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the Mayor of Barcelona and thank you to the other mayors and representatives of the metropolitan municipalities and Jordi Martí for having invited us as representatives of the civil society in the official closing of this meeting of the General Council of the Strategic Plan, Metropolitan Plan of Barcelona. My congratulations to Mariana Mazzucato. She's always so interesting and disruptive. Barcelona Global, my organization, is here, and it has special significance and value. As you said, we were born partially as a consequence of the strategic metropolitan plan in times as well of economic crisis in 2008. People that later on went on to found Barcelona Global were called by then the mayor, Jordi Hereu, to actively participate in the metropolitan strategic plan of those times to contribute towards the formulation of a new narrative of Barcelona for 2020. Maria Reig, that we must all be thankful for her great work, was who led this vision of the strategic plan together with Josep Santacana, who we miss so much. Of those ideas and thoughts that were represented in a green paper of 200 pages that you'll all remember with 14 commissions, from there came the idea or the need of making all this happen. And yes, that's been the slogan of our Barcelona Global organization that I am honored to preside. From those ideas in the book, we have keywords such as leadership, management, going across, civil society, influence, sustainability, education, competitiveness, universities, industries, critical mass, and amongst others. But they all have a common denominator, which is the metropolitan vision, the metropolitan standpoint. Let us recover the projects we had and see the projects we have now. What we see clearly is that metropolitan factor, the fact of the metropolitan region in 2010 was a need, but now 10 years later, it is an opportunity. And I would say it's really something positive. That's why we're so happy about beginning this good, well-coordinated working process, so well coordinated by Uroli and Jordi, to think the metropolitan area of Barcelona. It's a process of crucial importance and really we require results. This is a process. Barcelona tomorrow, this metropolitan commitment that we all expect much from, but especially we hope it'll happen. We must make sure it happens. We must define this metropolitan strategy. The vision and coordination of the metropolitan area of Barcelona is necessary. That we know. All of us know this. All of us. You better than I. You said it. You're going to defend it. Workers, companies, corporations, entrepreneurs, research, logistics, culture, education, just life have no borders. It's an urban continuum. It goes from Mataró to Vilanova, passing Martorell, Vilafranca, Terrassa, Sabadell, and Granollers, amongst others. It's what we call the Great Barcelona. Yes, in this dimension, it can indeed look towards Madrid, London, Paris, Lyon, even Berlin. A metropolitan region that we see as crucial in the different actions that from Barcelona Global we've been working on recently. Mobility has to be metropolitan from beginning to end. Access to accessible, affordable housing. The answer is also metropolitan. To attract investment, that has to be metropolitan too. And managing tourism, generating new urban projects, attracting talent, developing infrastructures for research, the infrastructures themselves, education, managing everything, our reputation here in all. The metropolitan dimension is an advantage and is an opportunity for everyone. The pandemic is also teaching us many things. And with the pandemic, we've seen that the limit of local governance currently, so sanitary regions and limits don't correspond with the reality we live. So of course, when there is this local thought impacting regionally and needs, both in health and housing, come across, they go across borders. So this metropolitan essence is basic. If we don't achieve this metropolitan standpoint, then we won't achieve the goal of where and how we want to live and work. We want to do so in the place where there are more opportunities and where they help us reach what we need. In Barcelona Global, our commitment is towards Barcelona of talent. Talent that will feel attracted to Barcelona, seen as what it is already, a space of freedom, creativity, very fertile to innovation, fair, sustainable, and concerned about the problems of persons with efficiency and intelligence. And I'm sure that in this metropolitan commitment that you are submitting today, we will all take into account the need of intelligence to achieve this metropolitan region that is polycentric, cooperative, and inclusive. So all in all, the Barcelona we deserve. The administration is led by, and it's what Mariana Mazzucato mentioned. She said that things don't happen on their own. We can't do anything alone. And so then this metropolitan commitment is essential for the citizens. It's crucial, and it's also being entrepreneurial. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Cata. The metropolitan region of Barcelona is a territory that doesn't have specific governmental bodies, but undoubtedly what best represents the whole territory and its extension is the Provincial Authority of Barcelona. Its president, who is also the mayor of Hospitalet de Llobregat, Ms. Núria Marín, is with us as well to talk. Hello, everyone, and most especially to our winner of the award. Congratulations, and my special thanks to the president of the Strategic Metropolitan Plan. And thank you for having invited me to come representing the provincial authority, the Diputació of Barcelona. And if you allow me, I would like to say hello to the president and coordinator of the Metropolitan Plan, and of course, the president of Global Barcelona. All those people who are seeing us connected from your homes or offices, hello. This is a meeting that is not really, it's not yet another meeting, not at all. It's a very important event. We see how this Barcelona Tomorrow Metropolitan Commitment 2030 process is beginning. It starts now. It starts, I think, on very good foundations. And this is essential. We need good news, don't we? And this is good news. We are finishing a very difficult year, a hard year of shocking complexity that we had never anticipated. I mean, I don't think anybody could imagine that these times could happen. And Barcelona Tomorrow as a project is giving us a special look out of this crisis. It connects with the horizon of the goals of sustainable development of the millennium and the 2030 agenda. It's a way out of this crisis. And Barcelona Tomorrow, as a plan, opts for this real metropolis, an interconnected, interdependent territory that is much more than the sum of its towns and cities and villages. It goes beyond of what strictly means a metropolitan area. And this as well is good news. This real metropolis is something that we want to deal with real policies, concrete, effective policies, policies that don't only deal with the everyday living, and we know quite a lot about this, unfortunately. Yes, I mean, in these recent months of the pandemic, it's meant policies of emergency. But in Barcelona Tomorrow, we are thinking mid and long term, and we're thinking then about the near and more distant future. This is also essential. This health crisis has come, and it's added to the problems of the climate and to what is happening with technological development globally. And these are three challenges then that we have to integrate in our public action programs. Political programs that come from proximity and that come from the grassroots level of the local world, of being in direct contact with neighbors, in direct contact with companies, corporations, and in direct contact with the needs and problems of our territory. And this local world goes and happens to in one of the most important regions of Europe. And for some time, well, there's been a lot of networking, looking for development models, favoring citizenship in a more cohesive, fair, and sustainable way. The persons responsible for local governments, and especially those of us who represent and work at the Provincial Authority of Barcelona, the Diputació, this metropolis of the 5 million is something we like a lot. We love the feel of it and the sound of it, because of course, we're talking about a scenario that fits in perfectly with the policies of this local cooperation that we defined in the last decades. So clear policies, always thinking of the metropolitan territory, and even more now, times of social and economic reactivation. It must all be transformative, because the new normalcy, or that's what people call it, it cannot mean going back to what we had before, that very precarious and not sustainable at all everyday life that we had some months ago. We cannot go back to that. The horizon clearly is this metropolis of the 5 million people, a metropolis that is advanced, green, sustainable, solidary, technological, integrating, and fully aware of its own resources and its potential. So we are aware then of the force of a network of villages, towns, and cities working together, looking towards the future with adequate strategies. If we are fully aware of all this, we can do much more than to some efforts. We can multiply welfare and prosperity for all without any loss, and in a framework of feasible, clean, efficient economic development that is also resilient to fight the times and the hardship that we've had to face with the pandemic. So the Diputació, the provincial authority, as spokesperson and representative of local organizations, we are very happy. We feel very well with this project of Barcelona Tomorrow Metropolitan Commitment 2030. It is a commitment that we publicly say yes to as a Diputació, as a provincial authority, because it is part of what we do in our institutional responsibility. We cooperate with 311 municipalities in our province of Barcelona. That's why we trust that this project will continue forward and will make headway at a good cruising speed, and that very soon will be portrayed in solutions for the whole of the territory. Because the citizens, these 5 million inhabitants, these 5 million people that all of us work for and for whom we work, deserve that this region offers all the opportunities that can be given. So congratulations and thank you. Thank you very much, President. We come now to the final moments of this event. We can see that the importance of a shared vision of the future and work in collaboration is essential for that. Finally, the Mayor of Barcelona and President of the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona and President of the Metropolitan Barcelona Strategic Plan is going to address us final words. Well, I'll be very brief. First of all, my thanks to the participation of everyone, those of you who could be here, and most especially to the mayors that have been connected online. And yes, indeed, as the president of the provincial authority was saying, this should not be just another event, but rather it has to be a special moment because it points and defines the beginning of something fantastic. We have huge challenges, great opportunities, and we'll only be successful if we all work together. So that's why those of us who come from the world of what is local, we know that this is true because in this country, especially in this country where historically municipalities were infra-financed and have less competencies to decide regulations and legal frameworks, we've had to compensate all this with a lot of proximity work, as Nuria Marin was saying, with innovation that Professor Mazzucato mentioned, and with a lot of cooperation, which is something that goes across all areas. And we know that these are, I think, the strong points, aren't they? And that's why they position us in the current crises in a better place than states that sometimes are slow and competitive. So this local world, in the broadest sense, is really very strong. We have proximity, innovation and cooperation are part of our DNA. And now more than ever, we've got to activate them to make sure that we meet the challenges. And I insist, not only to meet the challenges and tackle urgent issues such as better possible use of these European funds, because indeed we must transform. We mustn't only just cover gaps. That's not what we want to do. It would not be responsible on our behalf. We've got to go for this green digital transformation that Europe wants. We'll only do this all together. So not only this, as I was saying, we have to take advantage of all the opportunities that we have and that we can actually define on the basis of collaboration and discussion amongst us. Only this week, and I'll end with this optimistic note. Yes, we're living difficult times, a health crisis, waiting for the vaccine to come next year, with economic sectors and industries that are not doing really well, like, well, trade, hotels, bars, tourism, culture, sport. So very important industries that affect thousands of families. Christmas is coming. It's difficult times. So I don't want to be, too triumphant in my discourse, but listen, we still continue to work. And only this week, in this hall where I am, yesterday we talked about the 2021 food and beverage capital. This is an international event that Barcelona has won, and it's going to be happening. So, but it doesn't have to be thought as something municipal, but rather metropolitan. It represents huge synergies and opportunities between the world of production. We saw it in the video, yeah, and restaurants, caterings, municipalities, citizenship. So truly, it's an incredible economic, well, not only economic, but an economic possibility. And this afternoon, I can say it because you've read it in the press, I can't give details. There will be an important event taking place this afternoon too. It's been announced publicly today that Barcelona has also been awarded an important art biennale, which is, as you know, it travels every 2 years. And in 2024, it will come to Barcelona. And of course, this will have an incredible metropolitan dimension effect. So this is something that for us is a priority. The cultural industry that right now is suffering the pandemic, and it's great news then to be able to share this with you. So, well, optimism, this is the line. We know a lot about, those of us in the local world, we know what it is to reinvent, innovate, on the basis of proximity and cooperation. So I'm sure that Barcelona tomorrow as a project is an opportunity that will indeed work. And when we look back some years in the future, we'll be very proud of today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies, alcaldessa.
Thank you very much, Mayor of Barcelona. Thank you, Ms. Qatar, Marin, Mr. Martí, Mr. Estela. Thank you to those of you here physically, and thank you to those connected through internet. Thank you for being with us. Before we leave, you have an AV production. It's the visionary poetry of Mario Sampera, Ballad to the God of the River and the Sea, interpreted by Blanca Llum Vidal, the poet, produced by Albert Lloreta. Goodbye. Thank you. I saw God going down the Besòs River. The single time I saw him, never again. It was a clear morning, incredibly full of light, and that's the way it had to be. All of a sudden, the sky went back to pity. Blue closed the cycle of dark rain. Fine wind, always frontal wind, wanted to take all the damage of the night. The voices of the underground followed the river, water, full of froth coming from clay and mud, had gone 12 hands over its own respiration. It dragged all sorts of debris, black, dead wind, rats, debris, anything that has to do with the first question of the world. I said to myself, it should be him, with the oil, the acids coming from so many channels and canals. God was going there. It's the old story, isn't it? First, something would have gone along the mountain of the Holy Ghost. To escape, of course, it would have gone along the sad Sant'Adria streets. Dampness would make it feel poor, and after that, more white and black than purity. Indeed, ill, it would be coughing blood on the two sides of the river, and it would wait to flourish, thankful for ruin and evil. Let the storm come. That's the way it should have been. And now it was not well. But there are three reasons to change. Not to go again to that mistake of being seen, and also to recover immensity, lost immensity there. There, the end of the river, there will be golden oranges coming, and the fish, the moon will be new. Ulysses again, never coming back home, will be there. And with him once again, the trip will come of our soul again in water.